All right, we are back. Peanut Gallery, take it away.
Yeah, so Triple H is doing something very unique with these women's champions when it comes to switching them. He's not actually switching them. He's like, he's having them being defended as if they're just regular titles. As of right now, it's a little cattywampus because the SmackDown Women's Champion is on Raw and the Raw Women's Champion is on SmackDown. And it doesn't seem like they're doing anything to force any switching of these championships.
Which I am very happy about because it almost is like you are a champion, but what champion are you, you know?
It's almost like it doesn't matter what brand you're on. You're that brand's women's champion. Like, you're even though you're on Raw, you're the SmackDown Women's Champion, but it doesn't matter because you're still a women's champion.
Right. It makes them more important, but I really hope that they decide to do some sort of, maybe not like this kind of switching, but a switching where somebody wins the title, taking it back.
And you know, we speculated on this with Asuka recently winning the SmackDown Women's the Raw Women's Champion from Bianca Belair,
and Rhea Ripley retaining the SmackDown Women's Champion against Natalya.
So it sets up a couple of very interesting scenarios, if you want to call it that.
Obviously, they can still do this,
but I don't think it's going to happen because I think that they're setting up a scenario where Bianca Belair will go up against Rhea Ripley, and I think that might be a program that'll be very near in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they have to do something for SummerSlam, and I think that would be an appropriate time to start that, or even Money in the Bank if they want to do it a little bit closer to home. Because I don't think there's anything in June, is there?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
I can't think of anything. So they did this a couple of times.
Yes.
So they did it with, obviously, the women's champion with Charlotte
Flair. They did it
Flair.
twice with the women's champion, if I'm not mistaken.
Did they do it twice with the women's champion?
I think so. They've only done it. They did it once with Bianca, not with Bianca, with Charlotte Flair and
Becky
Lynch, which was the more infamous one, but I think they did it one other time as well. And I think it was the same year as this one where they switched the SmackDown and Raw Tag Team Champions. I can't remember which one it was.
I think I know what you're talking about. I can't remember what segment it was. But and I think this is kind of where they have these like SmackDown and Raw specific tag team champions. This is where it sort of becomes weird.
Yeah.
It's because I don't mind two women's champions, and I don't mind two tag team champions, but call them very generic.
Yeah, they should be more generic. Like the United States Intercontinental Champion are generic enough to not be associated with one brand or the other.
Right. Or when they had the World Tag Team Champions and the WWE Tag Team Champions back in 2002.
Right.
It's like that would make more sense indicatively than the Raw or the SmackDown because you're already saying that this is exclusive to this brand. How about you give us the option to say, hey, maybe this team deserves it, or hey, we are going over there, but we still have these tag team champions. Let's defend them sort of however we want.
Because they've done that in the past where champions have moved brands. Even the tag team champions have moved brands when there really wasn't ever an issue.
Right, exactly. Up until when they made the SmackDown and Raw tag team and women's champions. And you're right, the Intercontinental in the United States are a perfect example where if Gunther and Austin Theory were both on Raw as an example, it wouldn't be a huge problem because, well, they're already there. The Universal Champion and the WWE Champion are the same thing. They're not exclusive to one brand. Well, right now they are.
Right.
But we don't have an issue here.
Right. We have an issue with them being named after a very specific brand.
Right.
And it causes these awkward title switches. But the way that Triple H is doing it is I think, a little bit better because he's not going to incorporate that, I don't believe, that awkward title switch.
Thank God, because because you had the confrontation, like the legitimate beef between Becky and Charlotte,
and I think that's where it kind of died.
Yep, because the New Day and the Street Profits one happened before.
Right.
So,
like I said, I think that they're setting up a scenario in which a SmackDown superstar will challenge for the SmackDown Women's Champion.
Right, and I think Bianca Belair is the obvious choice because of her long title tenure. Now, the question at this point is, who on Raw deserves the opportunity to go for the Raw Women's Champion?
Right.
You have, you're obvious. You have your Becky Lynch's, but it looks like they're going to continue her rivalry with Trish. But I can't think of anybody else that Asuka could face legitimately and it be like, there might be an opportunity here for this change.
Right.
So it's just, they just packed SmackDown so hard of these women's champions, because Rhea Ripley's number one a heel and the SmackDown Women's Champion.
Right.
If she was a babyface, I would say Rhea Ripley would have been the obvious choice to face Asuka.
Right. But Asuka, I think, is going to be seen as largely a transitional champion, which is unfortunate, but I think that's just the reality of it.
Right.
She'll probably lose to a babyface on Raw that will be able to then be a good challenger for Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, once again, we get to the issue of who. Unless they're going to do like a random Becky Lynch versus Asuka thing at Money in the Bank or whatever.
And I don't think it's going to happen that quickly. I think it's going to be...
You think it's going to be more long for?
Yeah, I think it's going to be closer to the end of the year.
End of the year?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking like SummerSlam at the very least.
Well,
if Asuka's going to be a transitional, you want her to lose it sooner rather than later.
But again, we just don't know.
Right.
We just don't know the long-term storytelling.
I think the smartest idea within this is for Asuka to go back to Raw. Because number one, Raw needs help.
Yeah.
And number two, SmackDown doesn't.
Right.
Like, SmackDown already has great stars already.
But again, there's already a packed roster on Raw as well.
But do they, though? That's the issue. It's like, you might have bodies.
Right.
But are they bodies that can legitimately go for these titles?
I don't know. Right, and I just don't know that.
Now, another example of this happening where the commentators at Night of Champions hinted if AJ Styles won the World Heavyweight Champion, he would be going to Raw.
Right, because Raw was going to be the world title destination.
Right. So, maybe Asuka will kind of do in the same vein of... maybe she should be on Raw instead of being on SmackDown. Right.
And I think it was just kind of weird how Rhea Ripley was not drafted to SmackDown, how she remained on Raw through the draft.
Right. Well, she had to stay with Judgment Day.
Right.
All members, because she was drafted separately from the rest of Judgment Day.
Oh, she was. I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, yeah, no, she was, I think she was the first choice for Raw. No, she was the first woman's choice for Raw. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. No, she was totally different. So, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But, I don't have too much more to say on this topic. I just, like I said, I think it's interesting how this whole situation is being handled a lot differently than what it has been in the past.
Right.
With Triple H running things. It just kind of goes to show that, Vince is no longer in charge.
Right. Now, another question which I think would be wise is, how would you solve this issue if you believe it to be an issue at all?
I don't think it's an issue at all.
There are a couple of scenarios that I would technically do that I think would not only benefit the wrestlers, but also really have people excited again. And I think they should either revert or create new champions to replace the Raw and SmackDown specifics.
Right.
So with the tag team champions, if they're going to continue to be unified, make unified tag team champions.
Right.
And they can just go between the shows, not a big deal. But for the women's champions, you can do a couple of different things. You can make a women's world champion and a women's champion.
Right.
And have them do that way. You can either have the wrestlers physically switch the champions, or you can say, okay, Rhea Ripley, you're going to SmackDown because you're the SmackDown Women's Champion, and Asuka, you're going to Raw because you're the Raw Women's Champion. An even switch.
Yeah, and we just don't know. And like I said, I think that they're going to do it the storyline way. I don't think that they're going to do it in any other way besides just have the storylines appear.
I think that
it's going to take a while, but I think eventually it's going to happen.
I think that's going to be the easiest choice. I mean, for me personally, I would do my first suggestion, which is replace the champions with new champions that will be default enough to where if the women's world champion is switched over somewhere else, it's not like, why is this SmackDown Women's Champion on Raw? Right. So that's just what I would do.
Yeah, but that's about it. That's all I have. Like I said, I think it's something that's interesting, and I think that we're starting to see the development of it.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
But that's about it.
All right, great. So when we come back, I'm getting on my soapbox.
All right.